Hello, I'm Dr. M. Welcome to VMC. Today we are going to cover heat stroke, the common signs, symptoms, how you can prevent it, what you should do if you think that your pet does have heat stroke. Join me, you'll learn something. So both dogs and cats do not sweat like us humans do. They do have some sweating capability in the pads of their feet, and so that's why sometimes you might notice that when your dog is walking and it's hot, their little paw prints might leave just a little bit of moisture because they are sweating a tiny bit. But really, dogs do the bulk of their temperature regulation through panting. So when they are passing the air over their tongue and back out, that rapid exchange of air is their way of attempting to cool themselves down. Our cats don't pant, and so their temperature regulation is even a little bit more finicky than it is for our dogs. Both cats and dogs can regulate their body temperature a little bit through their ears, as their ears have a lot of vasculature and blood flow to them. So if they are hot, they will dilate those blood vessels in an attempt to get that hot blood passing by the cool air to help them cool down a little bit. And so over the entire body, when any animal is hot, their blood vessels do dilate in an attempt to try to help them cool down. Now there is of course individual heat tolerance and intolerance. In general, animals that have thicker fur, longer fur, and animals that are brachycephalic, so those with the short noses, are going to have less ability to tolerate heat than animals that have proper ability to breathe with a proper snout length, and those that have a thinner, shorter hair coat. Now it's important that we consider both heat and humidity, as increasing humidity can make the temperature harder for our pets to tolerate. Let's cover the common signs and symptoms that you'll notice if a pet is experiencing heat stroke. For dogs especially, the most common thing you'll see is excessive panting. They just will not stop panting, and it's a harsh and fast pant. However, if cats are in extreme distress, they will also pant. If you ever see a cat panting, that is an emergency. They're having a really hard time and you need to immediately get to a vet clinic. You might also notice a change to gum color. It could be reddened, it could look bruised. They will also be potentially wobbly, or they might collapse. You can see change to consciousness, like a mental dullness. This can worsen and progress to being unconscious, and after that the animal will be in a coma, and if they continue to worsen from there, they will die. Sometimes you can also see vomiting and diarrhea from pets that are having heat stroke. So the reason that our pets can die from heat stroke is because that extreme body temperature can cause swelling in the brain, kidney failure, and multi-organ failure, and basically the organs just shut down. You can also sometimes have abnormal blood clotting that is secondary to heat stroke. So now that you know the common symptoms to watch for, here's what you need to do if you suspect that your pet has heat stroke. First and foremost, immediately remove them from this hot environment. Get them into a cooler space. This is very important. Make sure to do this carefully so that you don't put yourself in danger. Next, you need to offer them water. Do not force them to drink, but allow them to if they want to. If they are conscious enough to think about it and to feel thirsty, drinking some of that cool water will help to cool their body temperature. But if they don't want to drink and you try to force them, you can cause aspiration pneumonia and other problems, so never force water. Next, you need to increase airflow, so having a breeze over them can be helpful. And then you should wet some towels or face cloths or whatever you've got in cold water and lay them over the back of the animal. Now you will need to swap these out regularly, because as the heat from the pet warms the towel and the water in the towel, then you need to swap it out and put another cool one on to continue to help with the cooling. You don't want to use ice packs because that cold shock can constrict those dilated blood vessels, and so that might not help with cooling as much as we would like it to. You also need to be calling the emergency veterinary clinic and tell them what you are seeing and that you are on the way and when you expect to be there. That will allow them to be prepared for you So as you travel to the vet clinic, you need to have air conditioning on and also windows down, because having that airflow is a very important part of helping to cool the pet. Get there as quickly as you can. Once you get to the vet clinic, they will assess your pet. Treatment usually involves things like IV fluids to help with dehydration and also to correct any electrolyte imbalances that your pet might have. I would also expect blood work to monitor for organ health, electrolyte imbalances, and to see if any of that abnormal clotting has started. There might also be the need for oxygen supplementation, and then they will continue the cooling efforts with cool water and with airflow to help reduce the body temperature of your pet back to normal. Now, here are things that are very important that you do not do. I see horrific advice going around social media all the time from people. I'll often see things like, give aspirin. Do not do this. This is a bad idea. It can cause severe GI side effects. It can also cause excess bleeding, and this is the last thing your pet needs. I also read about people giving lemon juice to their pets. What I read was people are claiming that this reduces the frothing that the animal is doing. Do not give your pet lemon juice or anything else like this. As I mentioned earlier, do not force any liquids into your pet. You can offer regular cool water, but if they choose not to drink, so be it. If you're forcing liquids, you are going to make things worse. You can cause aspiration pneumonia. You can literally drown your pet if they're not in enough of a conscious state. Not only that, the acidity from lemon juice can cause vomiting, which then they might aspirate their vomit. This is just a terrible idea. Do not give lemon juice. I also see people saying that you can never give ice cubes to pets. This is just wrong. Some cats and dogs really like having ice cubes in their water to cool the water down on a hot day. You can play around with this and see if it is something that encourages your pet to drink a bit more. You can also give ice cubes to cats to play with. Tend not to eat them, but maybe they'll bat them around or lick them. You can also give ice cubes to dogs. They might eat them. What I do caution people about is giving too big of pieces. You don't want it to get stuck in the throat. And also, if it's a very large piece, it could be too hard for their teeth, and if they bite into it, that could cause tooth damage. So you don't want to give large pieces of ice for those reasons, but offering them small bits of ice cube, if they enjoy them, is absolutely fine. Now, in the case of heat stroke, don't offer ice cubes, just offer cool water, and only if they want to drink it. Like with most things, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We would far rather that you prevent your pets from ever getting heat stroke in the first place. So this means things like knowing the tolerance that your pet has, and if it is hot or humid, that you go for your safari's at dawn and at dusk when it's still dark out, before the sun's up, before the heat arrives. It also means that you don't exercise your pet by having them run when it's hot. You can let them wade in cool water, you can walk them in the shade a little bit, but do not do things like fetch, don't do things like agility, anything where there's running. Like, that is just not an acceptable exercise if it's too hot. You also have to be very aware of the heat of things like pavement, as it can burn their paw pads. Do not leave your pets in your cars. Do not do it. Leave your pets at home, or bring a second person who sits in the vehicle with your pet as someone else goes into a store. Even with all the windows down, it can be too hot in your vehicle, and animals die in very short periods of time when they are left in vehicles. And at home, you need to give them access to areas that have fans so that they can choose to move in or out of that increased air movement. You also need to make sure they have constant access to fresh, cool water. There are also cooling mats that can be very helpful, or beds that are a little bit raised off the ground so that you get some airflow underneath them. Some pets may also seek out areas, say with tile flooring, as that might be a little bit cooler than other types of flooring. So make sure that you provide access to cooler areas so that your pets have some choices and that they can move about as they need to. Now, people think just about hot summer days when they're considering heat stroke, but Animals that are not bred to breathe properly, so all the brachycephalic animals, experience heat stroke at very moderate temperatures. So anybody that already has these pets in their households needs to take extra care for them. Other things that people don't think about are when animals are exposed to dryers for an extended period of time after they've been groomed. If they're placed too close to a dryer and they can't move out of the way of that hot air, or if they are exposed to that blowing hot air for too long. Animals that are muzzled inappropriately, so the muzzle isn't big enough and they're not able to pant properly, can also experience heat stroke quickly. I've also lost some cat patients who go into a dryer and the dryer gets turned on. So please, I beg of you, check that none of your pets are in your dryer every single time before you close the door and turn it on. I'd love to hear from you. What's your pet's favorite way to cool down in the summer? Do you use frozen food puzzles? Do they like to have small amounts of ice? Do you have cooling mats set up? Tell me all about it. Tell me what works for you, or else tell me what you've learned from today and how that will change what you do in the future. If you have a subject matter that you'd like me to cover, please comment it down below. Today's subject was one that was requested a while ago. I always love to read your comments. Thank you so much for joining us today on VMC. I do post a new video most Fridays. I hope you'll come back next week and that you have a wonderful weekend.